Hi, everyone. How are you all doing today? First off, I'm excited, and I just wanted to let you know that I'm on an interview at the moment with my coach, my NLP coach and mentor, Anne Burton. Hi, Anne, and welcome, and thank you very much for this opportunity to interview you.
Hello, James. It's always an absolute pleasure to chat with you.
Thank you for that. Thank you. And so the reason why I invited Anne for this call and this chat to talk with her was, like I said, she's an NLP coach and mentor, and I'm the lucky person that had her train me up for what I know now. Okay. So before we go any further, Anne, can you explain to everybody what does NLP or neuro-linguistic programming mean?
Okay. So obviously lots of unusual words in there that we don't usually use in everyday speech. So neuro-linguistic programming. So basically that is what we think, what we say, and what we do. And for me, NLP is simply that. It's how the combination of those three things, what we think, what we say, what we do, how that not just influences the experience that we have of life, but creates the experience that we have of life. It's as simple as the difference between getting out of bed in the morning and saying, today's going to be crap, and then being really surprised that it's crap.
I never have any of those days, obviously.
Obviously, perish the thought, James. And getting out of bed in the morning and going, do you know what? Today's going to bring what it's going to bring, and it'll all be fine. In a very simplistic way. But when you obviously when you train in NLP, you get to learn an awful lot about the language we use.
Yes.
How that works with the way our brain works, how that works with the way our body works, and then how that works for the results that we get in life, the experience we have, and the whole story. I know you're sort of telling your story a little piece at a time at the moment, but how all that influences that story and influences whether we write our story or we have somebody else write our story for us.
Gotcha. Brilliant. And
that makes sense?
Yes, indeed. And Anne, I just wanted to add to that because, from your coaching and your training that you've helped me with, I helped to understand, as you said, the power of language, right? And the power of words, not from just help when we communicate, but also how it makes us feel as well.
Absolutely.
Right. And one of the big things I've learned from the course and the training with you is be careful of the words that we use on ourselves, right?
Yeah, definitely. We tend to speak to ourselves in a way that we would not accept from anybody else. We call ourselves names that we would be mortally offended if anybody else called us those names.
Yes.
But we do it habitually, and then it does have it. It has a sort of downward spiral effect. Yes, if you're always calling yourself an idiot, the chances of you valuing anything that you've actually done is quite small.
Yes.
So yeah, absolutely. What you're saying and how you're saying it are very important, and particularly on the internal dialogue. I'm a bit of an internal chatter myself,
right.
So yes. I just know how important all that is. Yeah.
Definitely. Right. We're always our own worst critic.
Yeah, definitely.
Right. And so, Anne, before we move any further, I was just a bit interested how did you get attracted to, because just besides NLP, I know you're a published author as well on several books, so congratulations. But how and why did you decide to become a, NLP coach and all of this stuff?
Yeah, there's a story in itself. Yeah, so initially, by training, I'm an accountant.
Okay. Wow.
So please don't hold that against me. But I was in industry. I'm not the sort of accountant you go to and say, "Oh, can you sort my tax out?" In industry, so commercially. Excuse me. And I used to lead and be involved in a lot of change projects.
Gotcha.
Computer system change, restructures, moving offices from one place to the other, even as simple as a process changed.
Right.
We should do it on this piece of paper now, we're going to do it on this piece of paper.
Okay.
And what amazed me was just how freaked out, angry, anxious, resistant people are around, myself included, obviously, people are around change, especially when it's not a change of their own design. We struggle enough with change that we want to happen. Change that somebody else wants to happen, whole different ballgame. So even if the change that we were implementing was really positive, and would take a lot of pain and frustration out of people's lives, the fear and resistance and anxiety still ran really high.
Yes.
So I sort of thought, I need to find out what the hell is going on here.
Yeah.
And it sort of set me off on a bit of a journey, as we tend to call it these days. So I was doing an MBA at the time.
Okay.
And I was really fortunate that the person who was my supervisor in that was very keen for you to look at behaviour in the workplace. But you weren't allowed to take the easy option and look at other people's behaviour. You had to look at your own.
Ooh.
It was not pretty. It wasn't pretty. You sort of go, oh, a bit like car crash telly,
Yes, indeed.
Oh, that's me. Yeah, so I did that, and it was mind-blowing and illuminating, if a little scary. And then I sort of got a little bit addicted to finding out more stuff. So I went on more courses. I did a postgrad course all about emotional development and the sort of story that we build. And then that was great. And I found out a lot about how people get to where they get to in their lives. You know what I mean? When you meet somebody and they're all a bit bent out of shape and you think, how did you get to here? Learned a lot about that. But I realized that what I didn't have was any sort of solution or options or whatever that I could offer either to myself or to anybody else. And this is where NLP came in. Gotcha.
Okay.
Because NLP is a very broad-ranging, it's almost like pick and mix to me. You know what I mean? There's so many different ways. You can look at the language, you can look at intervention processes, all sorts of stuff in there. But that you can actually tangibly make a difference with. So up to that point, I could understand why I or anybody else could be thinking and acting the way that they do. And the NLP started to be, so when you know that, if you want to change that, because it's not necessarily the case that we always do, if you want to change that, we can use some of this.
Gotcha.
So I did the NLP. I also trained as a counsellor, slightly different modality, but there are similarities between the two.
Gotcha.
So out of trying to change computer systems came this whole new thing, which is the coaching and the training. Love the training, love one-to-many, love face-to-face. We were talking before, weren't we? I mean, I think the whole online stuff is it's an amazing tool to have.
Yes.
Not my favourite place in the world. I like to be in the room with people.
You're right. Yeah. So you're very much a in the room type of person. And just something you just said there, Anne, because you said you went from helping to change computer systems in IT and all of this, and then you moved on to change the more complex system ever in people's heads, right? So it's still a system. It's still a chaotic system, right?
Spreadsheets, they do what you tell them to. Not so much.
Well, that's where the fun and the variety comes in life, right?
Oh, absolutely. But it's I think it sounds a bit corny and cheesy and everything, but when you've worked with somebody who's been in a huge amount of struggle,
yes,
and you see the light come on for them,
yes,
and then they pick up what they've learned and they start to run with it. That is the most rewarding, fulfilling, mind-blowing thing, I think, to be able to do with your life.
Most definitely. Most definitely. I completely agree with that.
You must understand that when you're working with people who are struggling to even get an interview, never mind a job. I've seen some of your feedback coming through, and I'm like that for you, I'm like, yes, go on, Jane.
Thank you, Anne. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. And just like you, Anne, I live for those aha moments, when they have the self-realization themselves, and actually all these stories they keep telling in their head, it's not true. but we can also change them as well, right? So like, like he's just saying all the training and what you're doing, I am using it for good, I promise.
I know you are. I know you are. You're a force for good, James. I know you are.
Thank you, Ed. Thank you, Ed. So, I mean, the reason for today's, today's session and the talk with you, as I asked, is because, I see so many people that are struggling in interviews, right? They're struggling in interviews. And for me, it's one of the most important things, not just in interview, but in any conversation, is the rapport building. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, and as I reached out to Anne to ask Anne, I can see a lot of people struggling with the rapport building. Is there anything within NLP and the training and any of that we could use to help these people out there that are struggling in interviews?
For sure. The reason that rapport building is such a big deal in any relationship, whether it's an interview, work relationship, personal relationship, doesn't matter, is that people buy from people like themselves. And when I say buy, I don't just mean product. You'll buy into somebody's ideas, you'll buy into somebody as a person. If there is just even the teeniest little thing that makes you think, consciously or otherwise, this person is like me, we have some sort of similarity going on.
Gotcha.
And that is where rapport building comes in. Because in that, they say you never get a first chance to make a first impression.
Yeah.
But in those first few minutes of an interview, when a lot of decisions, as we know, get made or may already be partly formed,
yes,
you've got an opportunity then to make a connection with that person. And this is what rapport building is for with NLP. And it's sort of couched in two slightly different ways, but they're very similar to each other. It's called matching and mirroring.
Gotcha.
Okay, so if I raised my left hand and you raised your left hand, we would be that. That's it. That's matching because we're left for left. But if you keep your left hand up there, right, and I put my right up, that's mirroring. So I'm like a mirror image of you. Right. So what it's about when you go into an interview is to look for something with the person who's interviewing you. Mm-hmm. You can not do an imitation of. Please don't do that. But slightly replicate yourself. Now, this can be a lot of things. So the way somebody's sitting, for example, are they sitting forward? Good. Are they sitting back? Have they got their arms folded? Are they leaning on one side? That sort of thing. If you can take up a similar enough, not identical, similar enough seated position, either in a mirroring or matching way, it sets up a little similarity. Also, if they shift position, if you give it a minute and then do a similar shift.
Ooh.
Yeah. So, if they're sort of sitting like this and then they go like this and you've been sitting like that, and you just give it a couple of minutes and then you just put your arm down. It doesn't have to be identical.
Gotcha.
Yeah. You're reflecting their behavior, you're reflecting them back to them. Right. So you can do it with how you're sitting. You can do it with words. In business, we're like a three-letter acronym, don't we? And we like buzzwords and this, that, and the other. Yes. If people are using particular words, providing you know what they mean and the context in which you use them, don't just say banana because the guy says banana.
Exactly. Yeah, that sounds good.
But if you can learn and use some industry standard terms, that creates a similarity.
Gotcha.
If they smile, whatever you do, somebody smiles at you, smile back. Mirror your own fire, make a connection straight away.
Right.
So like what they're saying, what they're doing, so sort of physical positioning. Also, how they're saying what they're saying. This is quite tricky. So maybe practice with a friend.
Right.
I say it is quite tricky. It can be, especially if you're a woman being interviewed by a man or a man being interviewed by a woman, because we have a different range. So whatever you do with your voice, you've got to do it within your range.
Right? Okay.
So if I was being interviewed by a very, 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 very deeply spoken man, I wouldn't put my voice right down there.
Right.
I'd maybe put it a little bit lower than it
Gotcha.
normally is. If somebody speaks relatively quickly and you don't normally, maybe speed your speech up a little, and vice versa.
Oh, that's one of my biggest challenges, Anne. Because I'm just like enthusiastic and I want to help, and like this, and then I probably scare half of the people away when I'm speaking.
But it's about using, in NLP we say your sensory acuity.
Gotcha.
Right?
Gotcha.
It's about being really present and really being aware of what the other person's doing. Do they speak quickly? Do they speak quietly? So if you've got a quietly spoken interviewer and you're really loud like that, you're probably not gonna chat.
Gotcha.
Yeah?
Gotcha.
So that's the sort of thing that you can do. Please don't do accents. If somebody's got a strong accent, do not attempt.
Don't do accents.
It's real crash and burn material, yeah. So do not attempt to match or mirror somebody's accent. That will not go down well.
Yes.
So basically, to make yourself as similar without being obvious as the person who's interviewing you. Now, this obviously can be tricky if you've been interviewed by more than one person.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. So maybe have a look and sort of try and establish for yourself who you think is actually leading that meeting.
Gotcha.
And build rapport with that person.
Right.
You can, when you've practiced, you can do group rapport. You can build rapport with more than one person at a time.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. It's one of the things when you train as a trainer that they train about group rapport and how it works in a group. Do you remember Andrew?
Yes, I do.
Yeah. Andrew is absolutely brilliant at doing that, because he was always in the room, right? He was always in the room, and what he'd be doing, would be physically matching or mirroring one of you guys.
Okay, right.
And then he'd speak to me.
Right, brilliant. Okay, so just to recap on what you just said there is, so it's not just about the for an interview, going in for an interview, but it's also what we're talking about rapport building is for trainers as well, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It's about relationship building. So it's not, you get some really cheesy salesmen that try to do it and do it really badly.
Gotcha.
The people who first name you every 3 seconds when you've only just met them.
Yeah.
And they tend to do it really, really badly. But if in any sort of selling relationship, if you're trying to pitch an idea at work,
yes,
you want to think about your rapport building when you're doing your presentation.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So you want to be doing it in interviews, whether you're interviewing somebody else or they're interviewing you. Because also, if you do it with somebody that you're interviewing a little, helps put them at ease. Because in their unconscious part of their mind, it tells them, these people are like me, this is a safe environment.
Right.
What you're doing really is you're building as quickly as you can a sense of trust between you. Mm-hmm. So if you're interviewing and you've got a very nervous candidate, you could help them out with a little bit of, sit a bit like them or whatever.
Right. Okay. So, that's super fascinating. And thank you for that, Anne. The question I have for you is, the point about people saying is, how do I stand out in an interview? Right.
Yeah.
And a lot of what you're talking about here seems sort of counterintuitive to that.
Yes. Yes.
Right. Rather than try and stand out and be completely different, you want to be trying to be, how are you like them?
Yes. Yeah. Just to build that element of trust.
Okay.
The standing out, I would suggest,
yeah,
will come from your ideas and how you answer the questions.
Gotcha.
Etc. Etc. Sometimes when people try to be individual when they go in, and maybe it's a little bit quirky and what have you.
No, I'm talking about.
No, it's like it can actually put people on the back foot.
Right.
So I would say stand out with how you answer the questions. Okay. Stand out with your ideas, stand out with your preparation, stand out with your presentation if you've had to put one together.
Right.
But build some rapport first.
Okay. Gotcha. So you're the same but different, but just different aspects that you're focusing on to be the same, and then the answers and everything else that you put together is different. Yeah,
absolutely. And another really important thing with rapport building is whatever you are doing it less than the person that you are trying to build rapport with.
Okay. So
if you're loud, if they're loud, don't be louder.
Right.
If they're quiet, don't be quieter.
Okay.
Do you mean?
Right. Okay.
So it's because it's got to be outside of their awareness. Yeah. Yes. What I would suggest for anybody who's thinking of using this is that now that we're allowed to go to pubs and things again, is that they go down the pub when they're out with their mates or whatever, and they practice this. Don't tell people, I want to practice my rapport building skills on you. You bring it into their awareness. Gotcha. So you just have to sit and having a cup of coffee with somebody, or you've gone out to the pub or whatever, just sort of go, oh, right, this person here, and practice that. You know what I mean? So what could you do? Could you stand a little bit differently? Could you hold your drink in a similar way? Could you speak a little bit slower, speak a little bit faster? Maybe they hold their head on the side, one side when they talk. Maybe you do a little bit, maybe it's to the other side, but just practice it. Because if you get called out in the pub because you've been too obvious, you can go, well, I'm practicing for an interview and this is what I'm doing. You can own it. Yeah? Right. But I would say practice before you do it. Because if somebody's feeling nervous about an interview and they're trying to think about what they're going to say and think about, and all that, and then they go, oh, and on top of this,
you've got to do this as well.
I've got to do all this stuff. Yeah. Then it's actually going to have the opposite effect of helping. So yeah, I would say practice it first, and it's just something subtle. It really is just something subtle. I don't know if you've ever noticed, if you're in a meeting somewhere and there's a lot of people sat around at a table, like a big business meeting type thing, and somebody will lean forward, and then one by one, other people will lean forward.
Yes.
Right? Now, the person who leans forward first is the person who is in most rapport with the person who leans forward.
Right.
Yeah. Because that's what they're doing unconsciously. They are going with that person's movement. So it happens all the time. It's a natural thing. It's like when you meet somebody for the first time and you say, oh, where do you come from? Where do you go to school? Do you have kids? What do you do for a living? You're not just being nosy. You're trying to find common ground.
Right. Gotcha.
And that's what the rapport building process is all about. It's just building that little bit of commonality.
Wow.
Very quickly.
Okay, so just connecting different things in what you said so far, and it's just like finding common ground, right? But you also said that people don't like change, right?
Correct.
So from what I'm seeing is that when we can build rapport with them and you can find the common ground, it seems safer and it's not as big a change.
Yes, yeah, because it's building trust.
Gotcha.
If you follow the roots of this back to when we were all living in small tribes.
Gotcha.
Okay, so small communities, little villages, 100, 150 people max. Yeah. We recognized safety by looking around and seeing that the people around us were the people that we know. Either by their dress or because it's people we recognize, or, we might have a particular way of, sticking things in our hair, or, whatever that people do to make themselves, like each other. So when you go to the football and all wear the same shirt, it's tribe.
Yes, it's tribe, right. So it's very tribal.
So you look around and you go, yes, we've all got a red and white striped shirt on. This is my tribe, right? You look round and you look down and you go, I've got a red and white striped shirt on. These guys have got blue shirts on. I may be in trouble here. you know. But if you take that back to when, you know, when we lived more simply, you probably were in trouble.
Yeah.
If you look round and you couldn't find enough similarity in those people and enough trust in those people, then you were probably in trouble.
Wow,
So
okay.
at a very basic level, that's how important it is. So that's where the need for it comes from, the need for similarity and connection and recognition.
Wow, that's a very, very, like you said, primal need then that everybody needs, right? So if we can match it and build rapport to fulfill that need, even in interviews and presentations or anything else, they can already, like I said, trust, feel safe, and I guess also be more open to hearing what you're saying as well.
Absolutely, absolutely. Something that I would, just as a little by the way, just to be aware of, I know that from going for interviews and what have you in the past, sometimes we can get so caught up into, I need these people to like me and offer me the job, that we don't pay quite enough attention to whether we like these people and want to work.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Yes.
So what I would say is, when you know, if somebody's going in and they're doing this rapport building thing, but they find themselves in a room with a person or people who are so far removed from how they operate and how they think and what their values are, that it's not comfortable, maybe think about whether you actually want to be there or not.
Yes.
You know, rapport building's great. It'll help you build trust. It'll help you be in a place where you can do your presentation. It's not there for you to fit in with a group of people that you don't actually want to work with. It's just a useful thing to have in mind. Which
is actually very true and very useful. Thank you, Anne. And I think, you know, one of the things I always say to people is, you know, you go to an interview and people are asking you lots of questions, and, you know, it feels like an interrogation sometimes, right? But I always remind people, but it's also an opportunity, because you're going to be putting your time and effort into this company to ask them questions back.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. We do still see a lot of the time, and for understandable reasons, because, you know, we need to earn a living when all's said and done.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed.
But we do see the interview process as a process of whether I'm going to be chosen by these people.
Yeah.
And where it needs to be, and am I going to choose these people too?
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Brilliant. And that was really, really useful. And I want to thank you very much for that. But, and just wanted to know, so, do you hold courses on rapport building? What sort of services do you offer to people out there?
Okay, the rapport building is part of the building blocks that go into the NLP practitioner training.
Yes, right? Indeed, right.
So it's right at the beginning of the course, because it's a basic communication and relationship building skill.
Yes.
So even before we go into more detailed stuff about language and other things, you know, using your awareness and using your rapport building are sort of like day one material.
Gotcha.
For an NLP practitioner. I do other training as well that doesn't include it as a thing, you know, but if you're a trainer, you're always going to be doing it anyway.
Yes.
I do some work for businesses. Sometimes rapport building is part of that, sometimes not.
Yeah.
But I'm just, as I said, you know, I'm a face-to-face person, and face-to-face is coming back, James.
Yay!
So, yay! After four attempts, an event that I was running in April 2020.
Oh my goodness!
Is finally happening in November this year.
Wow!
And it's actually a 3-month program on the back of a 3-day. Residential training.
Right. Okay.
It's based on two of my books, but primarily the second book, which is it's called The Mind Reboot.
Wow. Okay.
So what it is, you could, if you were that kind of person, you could buy the reboot book and follow it through in the book.
Right.
I don't know about you, but I'm not that person.
Neither am I.
I read the book. I read the book, thinking, "Oh, that's very interesting," and then I put it away.
Yeah.
So I actually like to go and do the process with somebody. So that's what the event is about. It's for people like me who buy the book with the greatest of intentions and then don't follow the process. So you know, so basically what it is, it's bringing together some NLP, some counselling based stuff, some stuff I learned on the postgrad, but it's a mixture of information, experiential processes, practices, techniques that sort of take you through a path of just resetting yourself. When we all get in a bit of a fuddle every now and again, when we've got into bad patterns or we just don't know where we're supposed to be going, and especially now, there are more people going, I don't know what to do now. This is all,
Yes,
it's a bit like we've all been shaken up and let loose, and we're all sort of wondering about going, what do I do now? So this is what the reboot process is about. So it's all about just having a really good, clear look and going, right, where am I? How am I behaving? What's important to me? How am I motivating myself around those things? So we just sort of pinpoint where you may or may not want to do some work, none of which is military. Okay. So then we move on to looking at the beliefs and feelings that sit behind some of the less helpful behaviours that we're doing.
Ooh, deep diving, right?
Yes, day 2 is a good one. And how we can quickly, painlessly, I hasten to add, let go of some of the stuff that we thought was just how things are.
Yeah, I did some of that with you. And that was very powerful stuff. Loved it.
It is. It's amazing stuff and so simple.
Yes, indeed.
As well. I think sometimes we think because we've been doing things for a long time, or because something causes a lot of difficulty, it should be difficult to let go of. You know what I mean? Well, if you do the processes and you're finding them too easy, you can always hit yourself over the head while you're doing them if you want them to feel harder. But it doesn't need to be difficult, and it isn't. So, like I say, we establish where we are, what we want to change. We work through a process of looking at beliefs and emotions from the past that we don't need to be having in our lives anymore, and how to change those, reframe those, get them out of the way.
Gotcha. Sounds amazing.
I love it. And then once we've done that, we then move on to, and now what's next? So a little bit of goal setting, but how about how we're operating in the wider environment? So, none of us are on an island. So who are we with? Who are we influencing? Who's influencing us? That sort of stuff. And how to be aware of the changes that you're making in your life and what sort of response and behaviour it's likely to bring out in others. Because it's about being very conscious that we go away and do these residential things and we learn lots of stuff, and then we go back into our own lives. And people go, what are you talking about, you weirdo?
That's what people say to me all the time. It's fine.
So this is why it's 3 days training, but I'm saying 3 months as a program, because then again, this is optional afterwards. On the second week, 5th week, 8th week, I think. Anyway, afterwards, there's 3 group calls. It'll be a Zoom thing like this. So that, when you go, you think you've learned something, you go home, you go, now, did they say that? Or did they say that?
Right, sort of yes, exactly.
Or saying, well, look, I've decided I wanted to do this and I've gone home and I'm finding this really difficult now. We can just have a chat and, see if we can untangle a couple of knots and just help people embed what they've learned into their lives, rather than go, right, you've had your 3 days training, off you go, bye. So it's just to give that additional bit of support. So that's basically what the reboots
love it
about.
Love that. And the question on that is, in terms of the type of person who would everybody would I'm sure benefit from a reboot weekend, right? Especially with everything going on here. But if you had to choose the type of person that you reckon would be perfect for the reboot weekend.
Okay. It does tend to be people sort of 30 plus.
Okay, right.
35 plus, and there's no way I'd turn somebody away who was a bit younger.
Yeah.
Generally speaking, that seems to be the age where we start questioning if the path we're on is the right path, or the decisions that we've made are the right decisions, or maybe, I don't know, maybe we've had a family and life's changed and it sent us into a spin, that kind of thing.
Gotcha.
Now, at the minute, it's I find it quite hard to answer what type of person with this process,
because it sounds like it could benefit a lot of people. But yeah.
People who breathe in and out and have a pulse generally are the type of people, you know. but what I'm finding is the people that say, you know, the people who are sort of getting in touch about the reboot and other things, it's particularly over the last 18 months, we've had so much change and so much uncertainty. And the two things that the human brain really isn't designed to cope with are change and uncertainty. Yes, and we've had shed loads of the stuff.
Yeah.
So we've got people who weren't necessarily badly affected by the whole sort of lockdown thing, not in the sort of job loss or health or whatever, but just because there was that big pause in life, it sort of made them go, so is this what I want? You know,
yes.
That sort of thing. For some people, it's been a real big upheaval, and they're still sort of reeling from it. Some people have had health struggles through it, but it's all been, you know, generally speaking at the moment, the people that have come in have got something to say about the last 18 months and the lockdown and the impact of it.
Gotcha.
And it's like I was explaining to you, we're doing this one on a not-for-profit basis.
Oh, wow, okay.
Because there's a small group of us just getting together at the moment to look at ways of funding other reboots.
Right.
We're also really conscious that for a lot of people, the last 18 months has been a real financial blow.
Yeah.
For some people whose jobs weren't really affected, they've actually saved money because they didn't go out and they didn't go on holiday.
Yeah.
You know, but for a lot of people on 0 hours, you know, that's something, people who got furloughed and then maybe laid off.
Yeah.
There are a lot of people who have struggled financially through this. And I try as much as I can to keep the costs of it down.
Yeah.
But there comes a point where it wouldn't matter how low I could make the cost. There are people who just can't afford to do it.
Yes.
Because the money isn't there.
Yes.
You know, and I'm not the kind of person that's going to suggest that people go off and get themselves into debt to come on this. Yes. You know. So this is the plan. So anything that gets made from this reboot, or actually any reboot that gets run through my limited company, anything that gets made from any of them will go into funding reboot events for people who need them, can't afford them.
Yes. That sounds amazing, and you know, obviously after this call, I'll make sure I get all the details and put it out there as part of this video, so that if people are interested and they want to learn more, and if you think that you know whether it's NLP, rapport building, or the reboot weekend is something that you're interested in, I highly recommend speaking to my coach and mentor, who is freaking amazing, people, right? And this, a lot of the crazy stuff I've learned is her fault, so you can blame her.
It's my fault now. I love it. Oh, brilliant, James. Brilliant.
Cool.
Yeah.
And I just want to say thank you again very much for your time. It's been a pleasure talking to you.
Well, thank you for inviting me, because as you know, I will chat to you until the cows come home.
Yeah, I can do the same as well. Okay, but yes, again, thank you very much for your time, and I wish you an amazing rest of the weekend. Best of luck with this reboot coming up as well.
Cheers, James. I'll speak to you soon.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Cheers.